Hi there, my name is Bradley Loudata, and I'm the author of a medieval fantasy role-playing game called Gloomraider. In this video, I'm going to touch on how the Gloomraider game came to be. So if that sounds interesting to you, stay tuned. What I've got here is a copy of the basic rules for Gloomraider role-playing game. It's currently available for download on RPG. I'll have a link in the description. But for this video, I'm going over how it even came to be. I want to start by saying that I started playing Dungeons and Dragons and also role-playing games in general since I was 12 years old in 1982. I got my start on the D&D basic set by Tom Moldvay, quickly moved on to the advanced Dungeons and Dragons books by Gary Gygax himself, and I played every edition of D&D since. And like I said, other role-playing games as well, but D&D has always been my favorite. And I started creating my own D&D style role-playing game in 2009, and that ultimately became Gloomraider. But why did I start creating my own in the first place? And for that, I would say that when I was playing the third edition of Dungeons and Dragons, or 3.5e to be more precise, I started having a longing of the old school AD&D way of playing D&D. And I discovered a role-playing game in 2007 called Castles and Crusades. And it very much was like AD&D, but with more modernized mechanics. And it was really cool, and I enjoyed playing that game for a good number of years. But what that game showed me was that you could create your own role-playing game that's very much like D&D. So although Castles and Crusades is great, there were some things that I would like to have done differently. So I started brainstorming that. Now, I want to note at the time I wasn't aware that there were two other role playing games out there that were like Castles and Crusades, but they were more like the old school uh, way of playing D&D. And the first is one called Basic Fantasy, which I have here on the shelf. And then the other is Osric, um, old school reference index compendium, I think. Anyways, just called it Osric for so long. Anyways, Basic Fantasy was like Tom Moldvay's basic D&D set with a little more AD&D flavor to it, separating class from race. But for the most part, was Moldvay's basic D&D, which is really great system. Basic Fantasy is a great system, and Osric was really just created to be a rule set where creators could make adventures or even maybe game settings compatible with advanced Dungeons and Dragons, but without having to say that, they could say they were compatible with Osric, and by being compatible with Osric, they were compatible with AD&D. And I wasn't aware of those at the time. I discovered those a little bit later, after I had been working on my own system for a while. But by the time I discovered them, I played them, enjoyed them, but I still kind of also enjoyed a little bit of the more modern mechanics that I started seeing in like third edition of D&D. And as I got older, I also found that I didn't have as much time to. I'm mostly a dungeon master, and so I didn't have as much time to prep as I used to. And also, I kind of like the idea of a game that you can spontaneously play. Like you're sitting around with your friends and you go, "Hey, let's play a game of D&D," and you want to go, "So cool, let's play." And sit down at the table, whip out some paper, pencils, dice, make some characters, and go to town and play. I like that idea a lot, and so when I was creating my game, that's kind of what I wanted it to. Not kind of, that is what I wanted out of my game, was to be quick and easy to get up and going, start playing, and go to town, and you're playing D&D. And so that's what I was working on trying to do. And I did that from like 2009 to 2014, and I just kept getting hung up. What I was creating was too many words, too many rules. It just wasn't developing into the kind of game I wanted. And fifth edition came out about that time, and so I kind of gave up working on my own game for a little while and checked out this fifth edition, which at first what was out was just the basic set and these basic rules you could download from the website. When I looked at that stuff, I'm like, wow, this is actually really neat. It looks really neat, and I guess kind of what I was trying to develop with my own RPG. So I became a DM for fifth edition and did that for a good number of years. But when the three core books came out, there were more rules added, and it became just as big of a game as any version of D&D. So it wasn't the simple, quick, and easy get started and go kind of game that I was trying to create. So I started working on adjusting fifth edition to be the kind of game I was trying to create. And I had some issues with the core mechanics of fifth edition. In particular, fifth edition has a mechanic to increase your ability scores pretty rapidly, actually. And but what they did is they incorporated that into the power level of the character itself, which makes sense. I mean, if you're going to have a rapid increase of ability scores, you better prep the game for that power increase. The problem that I saw, though, or it's not really a problem to some, but to me, what I didn't like is your power was now dependent on the increasing of certain ability scores. So if you didn't increase them, you were hindering your character. That didn't used to be the case in old school D&D. It was if you had really good ability scores, they enhanced, sort of made your character more powerful than the average person or the other characters. But with this, every character, like every fighter, eventually is going to have an 18 strength. Every cleric's eventually going to have an 18 wisdom, and it took away some diversity. No longer you having a cleric who's a hero but only has 14 wisdom, or a fighter who's a hero and only has 9 strength. That was gone in fifth edition, and so I wanted to bring that back somehow. Um, anyway, so I started again trying to work on my own RPG with fifth edition D&D as a base. While that was going on, I got introduced to another role-playing game called Shadowdark. And actually, that book is right there. I got introduced to it before they had their first Kickstarter, and I played with my friends as a play test, and we really thoroughly enjoyed it. And what I enjoyed most about it is it was accomplishing what I was trying to do with my role-playing game, which was quick and easy to get it characters going and get into the game and start playing. It really fit that bill well. The way Kelsey Dion wrote the rules, they were concise, brief, but enough to make the point. And so when you're trying to find rules of the game, they were very easy to find and very quick to read, and you were going. Um, One of the things in old AD&D is you'd have like paragraphs of text describing something, and within it was the information you needed that you were trying to look for, but you'd have to read a lot to find it. And Kelsey Dion was very good at being able to be brief, and so I admired that. And so we ended up creating a campaign, continuing the playtest, and it turned into a campaign that lasted over a year. And so then I was getting ready for the second campaign of Shadowdark. I wanted to put in my own house rules to the game that were more old school D&D. So I just started changing a few things here or there. And I guess all the creative juices and development that I have done creating my own role-playing game since 2009 started filtering in as house rules. And then when I was finally done, I realized I had changed Shadowdark so much that it really wasn't Shadowdark anymore. It played like Shadowdark, but there was a lot of changes to it. I had kind of created my own role-playing game based on Shadowdark. And so I would say Gloomraider in short is like Shadowdark, but with old school D&D rules thrown in, as well as some of my own unique mechanics. And in a nutshell, that is how the Gloomraider game came to be. When I introduced it to a friend of mine, he's like, dude, you created a system. You need to publish this. I was like, I don't know, publish? Never thought about publishing it. Because when I was creating my own role-playing game, I didn't create my own role-playing game to publish it. I created my own role-playing game to be mine that I played at, at my table. And Kelsey Dion, when she talked about developing her role-playing game and publishing it, she made mention to everyone that was watching, if you've created something, anything, any kind of game material, what have you, role-playing game, just publish it. So with those two pieces of advice, I thought, what the heck, I'll go ahead and publish it. And it wasn't complete, of course, but I figured I'll publish it. I wanted to see about getting feedback from people to see how viable my game really was. I mean, it was my game. I'm biased. I play it. I get it. But what about other people? Would other people get it? Would other people like it? The only way to find that out is to put it out there for people to play. And so that's why it's out there right now. So feel free to download it. You can get it for free. Try it out. Let me know how you like it. Let me know if you think, hey, this is a game that should be fully published into, a full-on game system. And that feedback will be invaluable to me. So with that, I think I'll go ahead and end this. And let me know in the comments what you think. And check out my game. Let me know what you think. It's just, like I said, it's free to download. And by the way, I created this from the PDF. You can download the PDF and then take it to Office Depot, what have you, and they can whip it up into a little staple stitched or stitched, a staple folded book, and you can have a hardcover copy of it. But anyways, that's it. Thank you for watching, and I'll be putting more videos out. The next video I'll put out will be about some of the old school mechanics that I put into Gloomraider. So stay tuned for that. Take care.